Hello, Peter Hewitt, la-artistino here. Today we're going to look at gemstones. I've had a lot of requests asking me how to colour gemstones, particularly in the Swedish book Dagdrömmar, but of course you can use the same technique in any colouring books. There are two different types of gemstones that you'll regularly see. One of them is these faceted cut gemstones, and the other, like my little friends here, are these little rounded smooth ones, and each one you use a different technique, so I thought I'd show you both of them. Now I was going to use the snake charmer picture to do the gemstone tutorial, but the only gemstone that she has is that one little one that's in her headdress, and I wanted a nice big gemstone so that I could demonstrate it to you quite easily and very clearly. So I've gone back to this page in Dagdrömmar, which I'm actually colouring using my Mikador Colour Rush pencils, which are a student brand of pencils, a budget brand, but I quite like. Not quite as dense or dark as the artist quality pencils, but I love the way they roll their colour down. So so far I've worked with them, and I've coloured in these two little faceted gemstones at either side of this big one. So I'm going to use this big one to give you a tutorial on how I went about doing it. Now before we start, I want to show you something. Let's get all this off the table first. For a faceted gemstone, I like to show you exactly why I colour it the way that I do. Now I don't have a gemstone to show you, but I do have this. This is actually a perfume bottle that my in-laws gave me, and you put the perfume in there and you've got this little oil sort of stick that you just dab it in there, and then you can dab it on your wrist. But the thing I like about this is that it's got a gemstone kind of shape to it, so I can show you what I mean with the way that light plays around a faceted gemstone. See, this is the colours that you get here. I mean, it looks clear, and it's only clear glass or whatever composition it's made out of, maybe crystal. If you turn it up there, you've got all these colours. Now, where did all these colours come from all of a sudden, and why are they all spangly like that? Well, the reason is the colour's actually in the base here, and the colour is all the way around it as well. The light enters the prism, that's the glass itself, and bounces around and comes out at all different odd angles, and you end up with this multicoloured object, which is actually really only clear. Now when I colour gemstones, I keep that in mind. So here we got the gemstone we're going to use, and you can see on the sides here, if you're close up, and that there is a variety of different colours that I use to colour it in with. Now it's basically, for this one, it's not a clear one, I've decided it's a ruby, a red stone, so all the colours sort of revolve around the red spectrum, sort of like red colours, with a bit of black and some white pieces left as well, and of course I add the sparkle in afterwards at the end. But to colour it, I do a different colour in each of the little facets to suggest that light is bouncing around it. So more or less what you see with this. I've decided that I want this gem to look like a diamond, so I've picked bluish tones. These are cool blues. This is the sky blue, the light ultramarine, and one of my newest pencils, the Indenthrin blue. I'm not quite sure how you pronounce that. I think that's close. It's INDANTHRENE blue. That's quite a dark one, but it's still a cool blue. The other thing I like to think about is the light source. And as you see here by these ones, the light source I've sort of had up above, so the lighter colours will be concentrated to the top of the gem, and the darker colours I'm going to go down to the bottom of the gem. As you can see here in this one here, the red one, I've got most of the little white patches and the lighter colours up here, with a mix of some of the darker ones, and as I go down lower you see more of the blacks and the darker ones. Okay, let's begin. I'll start off with the main colour, which I think will probably be this light ultramarine, and I'll start shading in some of these spaces. Now I can do it two ways. I can either make a solid block of colour, or I can come in dark at one side or down the bottom and then bring it across and just lightly shade it out. This is more difficult to do with the smaller gems, and there's lots of little gems in this book, such as the one sort of you can just see peeking up down here. Those little ones, I suggest you do a solid block of colour, unless you've got enough space to do a little gradient. There you go. So I've got it sort of darker down here and a bit lighter up the top. And I'll spread this around a little bit, this blue. I'll do a few more, again, getting it dark down the bottom and then lightening up as we go up. And just leaving the last bit white. Now what I'm doing now is I'm randomly picking little facets of this big diamond to colour in. Just a sprinkling here and there, and because this is the lighter colour, concentrating it more onto the top. The top facets or faces of this gem. Again, I'd never studied jewellery making, so I'll probably get all the terminology wrong here. I hope you understand what I'm talking about. I'll pick this one too. If you think you've had enough, you can change to the next colour, but you can always go back and add some more with the same colour later. Alright, there's the start. Let's pick up, I might go the lighter colour this time, the sky blue, and I start doing the same thing with some of the other ones. Again, because this is one of the lighter colours, concentrating it up the top, dark at the base, a little bit lighter at the top. Okay, let's start adding the darker ones now. I've got here the ultramarine. Start putting some ultramarine in. I think this front facing one, I'll do ultramarine. And because this is the darker colour, I'm going to concentrate it more down here. Can even go all the way around the edge and just put a little bit of shading around there too, particularly with the ones that are sort of towards the bottom. This is one of these things that if you just basically get sort of the kind of feel of it, it'll look great anyway. And just randomly picking some. This one I might make solid over here. Might do another solid one here. And I'll do another partially coloured one up here. Over here. It's a bit random what I'm doing. I'm just making sure that it's basically sprinkled around the place, with the lighter ones concentrated more around this area and the darker ones concentrated more around this area. I might move to my darkest colour now and start putting those in. Again, concentrating more to the bottom. I'll do this one solid, and I think I'll do that one solid. Starting to finish them up. We need another dark one around here somewhere. I think I might put it here, but I'll just darken down the bottom and make it grey. Just make it go lighter as you go up there, just because I'm heading to the top of the gem now. So as I said, just trying to simulate light hitting the outside of the gem, but also bouncing around inside it as well. That one's solid. I think we might have to do this one as well. This one I'll just put a gradient in again, just a little going from light to dark on that one. See, it's starting to look a bit complete now, isn't it? Now you can, if you want to, with these ones that you've coloured with the ultramarine, just pop some of this dark blue around the base to give it a bit more depth of colour. This is just all personal preference now, it'll all look good. I might do one here perhaps, just very lightly. There, and now we've got the idea that there's light bouncing all around the gemstone. And now it's just basically standing back thinking, is that enough? Shall I leave those white ones white, or shall I add a bit more colour to it? I might put some of the darker colour on this one. This is the ultramarine again. Alright, I think that's pretty much it. Okay, now, right, the next trick that I like to use is using a white Prismacolor. I'm going to just kind of whiten out some of the black lines here to give it more of a glowy effect at the top. Now the reason I'm using a white Prismacolor is because it's an opaque pencil, which means when I draw over the black lines, it's going to fade the black lines out. It's going to coat them with a bit of white to make them look lighter. So I'll use the Prismacolor and I'll just go over some of these lines here. You might like to do all of them. I'm just going to do some of them. And I'll take that harsh black out of the picture, particularly around the top where the light's striking the gem. It's a little trick. I'll just do a little bit on here, a little bit where the whiter ones are. Again, just sprinkle it around, mainly on the top here, and just sprinkle it around the rest of the drawing. Right, fade it out a little bit so that you haven't got very harsh borders between the black and the white lines, or the black and the whited out lines. Right, now for the last thing, you'll need a gel pen. And you know my favourite gel pen is the Uniball Signo White. Now with that, just going to make a test it on a scrap piece first to make sure that the end's not blocked, and we're going to make these little stars here. As you can see, these little shiny bits. So what I'll do is I'll pick one of the top facets or faucets, little faces, and I'll just do a little line going up, line going down, a line going left, a line going right. Now I'm going to do 4 more lines, but they're going to be smaller. So a little one at 45-degree angles from the original lines, and that'll give that a sparkle. I like to do 2, so I like to do one on the top and I like to do one on the bottom. Now there's no point doing it on that. No, actually I might colour that one in because I think that one's standing out a bit too much. And I'll use the light ultramarine. I'll just fill in this one. I think it's just standing out a bit too much and it's in the darker zone, so I think it should be filled. There. Okay, now let's give this one a little sparkle again. Just make sure your pen's running. Go up, down, left, right, and then little ones in between. If you don't like your sparkles, one of the gorgeous things about these particular pencils is that if you don't like it, if you think you mucked it up, wait till it dries, scratch it off with your thumbnail and do it again. Okay, and that's it for the faceted gems. Let's see how we can do the round gems. Now I'll show you how I colour in rounded gemstones. But before I do that, I want to show you why I colour them in the way I do. And you'll see quite a few other artists who use the same technique, and it looks very effective. For the purpose of demonstration, I've got these little blobs of glass here, which are going to be stand-ins for gemstones, because I don't actually have any to show you, but these will do the trick. Now, how you colour them depends on the light source. With these that you see in front of you, there's 2 bars of light coming in from either side, and you'll see that leaves a little bar of white going down the 2 sides of them. But I'm not going to colour them in this way. I'll show you why I'm going to colour them in a little bit differently. And to demonstrate, I'm going to have to turn my lights off. Now here is my flashlight. It's my little nurse flashlight for work. If I take one of these gemstones and I shine it down from the top of the gemstone down to the bottom, you see something very interesting happening. The top of the gemstone looks dark, but there's a spot of light where the light's hitting the surface of it, and the bottom of the gemstone looks bright. If I sort of tilt it up a little bit, you can sort of change where the colours are, but basically they stay the same. You've got a dark area at the top with the bright spot where the light's hitting it, and the light area at the bottom. And it doesn't matter what colour you use, you'll still get the same effect. And this is the effect that I'm looking for when I colour in bright gemstones. That green looks particularly good, doesn't it? And that's what we're going to be trying to imitate with the colouring. Okay, I'll turn my lights back on and really confuse my camera's white balance. You can still sort of see, can't you? Here, even with the lights on, we've got the same effect happening. Couldn't find a conveniently large gemstone to colour in Dagbroma. I've decided to colour my little gemstone in a kind of a turquoisey jadey green colour. So pop that out the way and I'll show you the colours I've selected, all in the Polychromos range. We've got here the white, the cobalt green, the cobalt turquoise, and the bluish turquoise. And I'll also be using a colourless blender. In this case I'll be using the Derwent blender. Lyra also make a blender as well as Prismacolor. Experiment beforehand with your pencils and your blenders to find which blender is the best one. Now I want the bottom bit here to be the lightest, so I'm going to start by putting a little blush of white here. And this will keep the next colour from getting too dark or too dense on it. So basically the shape I'm doing is a little round area here that's denser at the bottom and lighter at the top. It's very hard to see, of course, because I'm working in white. There. I've only done that very, very lightly, by the way. I've used almost no pressure at all. Next colour, I'm going to go for the cobalt green because it's the next darkest, and I'll start brushing that over that white. Now you're trying to get a nice even coat here. Now if you remember, it was lightest at the bottom and it started getting darker as you went up. This is just cartridge paper, so there's a few imperfections on it. You'll get a better result if you do this in your book, but this will work for the benefit of this demonstration. Now I'm going underneath that very lightest area there with a little bit of the cobalt green, just a little blush it in, make sure it all stays nice and smooth, and I'll come up here and I'll complete the rest of the gem very lightly with the cobalt green. This is the first layer. I want a nice smooth looking result, so I don't want to go too dark. I'll darken as I put subsequent layers on. It's going to bug me. A little spot of something there. There we go. Anyway, ignore it, we'll just keep pushing on. That's the first layer on. Now pick the next darkest colour. This is your middle colour. For me, this is the cobalt turquoise. And we'll start laying that on. Sort of coming about, probably half to a third of the way down the gemstone and getting darker as you go up. Remembering that this gemstone, despite the fact that the light bit's down here, is actually being hit by light up the top. The light is passing through the gemstone and coming out the other end, which is why it looks lighter at the bottom. It doesn't so much bounce off as pass through, because it's a clear translucent material. Yeah, getting darker. Just take your time, make it nice and smooth. See, I've got this kind of a C shape here, this concave shape here, sort of surrounding this bottom glow. Now I'll go for my next darkest, which was, or actually it's the darkest, isn't it? It's the bluish turquoise. If you want to take it one step darker, you can. Now this we'll put right at the top. If you want, you can go even darker. I don't suggest using the black because I find black muddies the colour too much. As you can see, I'm starting to press a little bit because I'm starting to come to the density of colour that I want. There. Now I've done that, I'm going to go back to the middle colour again, the cobalt turquoise. Start blending the edges in very gently. Pressing a little bit harder as time goes on, but not too hard. The idea is to make it nice and smooth looking. Now the next lightest again, or actually the lightest colour, is the cobalt. That was our original colour after the white. We start putting that on as well. And we can start putting a little bit of pressure behind it now, blending it right into everything, pulling the colour around a little bit so that it all comes together as one smooth surface. Come down into this white area. Now you can either finish burnishing it with the white, and I might put a little bit more white in there. If you want, if you feel it's not smooth enough, you can now go in with the blender and start pulling that colour around. Now I could go a little darker at the top here if I wanted to. I'd pick a very dark sort of greenish blue colour, slightly greenish blue, or even just a dark blue. Let's see now. If I wanted to go darker yet, I would probably go perhaps the helio blue, I think, with this, and put that over the top, and I just put it as a little band. But I'm actually quite happy with how dark it is. Now with your blender, make sure that your tip is clean, because anything that you previously used the blender on, you're going to have residue and you're going to smear it across your gemstone and wreck it. So what I do is I take a piece of paper, one of my scraps, and I just scribble off any problems. There. Also, I don't really like the blender to be sharp. I want it to have a sort of a dull, flat end. I think it works better that way. Now start with your lightest area and just circle out. Try not to drag the darker colour into the lightest colour. Just keep the colours where they're supposed to go, and just burnish it to get it nice and smooth looking. Final touch, of course, is to put your little white highlight at the top. So you've got the Signo Uniball pen, and just put a little dash or two of a highlight, and there you go. There's your gemstone, all done. Of course, you can use any colour you like. You can have an assortment of reds or purples or oranges or yellows, and you'll still end up with beautiful gemstones. Okay, I hope you've enjoyed this tutorial, and until next time, enjoy any colouring adventures that you're currently on. And oops, there's my gemstones all there. Put them all out. And lots of different colours. Okay, well, I'm off playing with my gemstones. I wish you all the happiness in your colouring adventures, and until next time, happy colouring. hope you're enjoying any colouring adventures that you are currently on, and until next time, happy colouring!